What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I will be taking a look at the new Saleen S1 GT4 Cup in the touring car category. This is actually going to be a new vehicle added into the Season 8 Episode 1 update. Now, I would say a lot of people most likely already own this vehicle because you pretty much had to buy this car to do the recent summit, so I would say a lot of players are most likely messing around with the Saleen to begin with, but I'm honestly really surprised, guys, on how good this car is, and honestly, I'm so glad they added this thing into the touring car category. I was really disappointed with this car when it was in the street class because, for one, it did like 225 to like 230 miles per hour, so it's actually going to be the slowest street car in the entire game when it comes to top speed, and I feel like a lot of people are most likely not going to use it because of that. Now, the car had one thing going for it. That's going to be the handling, which I'll talk about that more later in this video when I drive this one on the track, but the one on the street category honestly wasn't all that great besides its handling, and you do kind of need some type of speed in order to be fast on a lot of the events, but when it comes to the customization on this car, all you guys can actually do is change the rims and or change the caliper colors as well. So for me personally though, I really do like the stock rims on this car, and I really don't think people are going to be changing the rims on this to something like the Crew 2 rims. Let's be honest, they're kind of outdated, so I don't think people are going to use them, but overall, I really do think this car is honestly pretty awesome, and I love the look of it. It also seems a lot faster as well than the street one, which would obviously make sense because it's a race car. But anyway, guys, let's go do an outside look of the Saleen S1 right now, and then take this thing on a quick top speed test. And now moving over to an outside view of the Saleen right now, I really do think a lot of people are actually going to like this car. For one, I actually like the livery on this car, and those stock rims look really good. I also feel like a lot of people are most likely going to pick this one over the one in the street class, which is honestly not that hard to do considering this car is probably going to be better in every single way. Now, one thing I do want to show is also going to be that engine sound. Now, I could be wrong, but I do believe the engine in this car is indeed going to be a four-cylinder, and I have to admit, this thing sounds pretty dang good, but here's the interior right here, guys, so I do have to give Ubisoft some credit on this because this thing actually looks really nice inside. You guys will also see the buttons on the bottom middle there on the screen, so at least they have some type of detail to it. I also did notice the mirror as well. You can actually see behind you slightly, so that's definitely pretty cool. And then looking at the steering wheel, you guys will notice the speed, the RPM, and or the gear that you guys are in. Plus it will have like the buttons on it. So I really do think the first person view of the Saleen looks pretty dang awesome. Anyway, guys, moving over to the top speed test with the Saleen S1 here. So I have a feeling this car is most likely going to make the S1 in the street class basically useless because, my goodness, this car is basically going to be way better in every single way. For one, guys, look at that corner right there. This thing is obviously a race car, aka touring car, so I'm sure it's going to handle very well, but my goodness, this S1 is not something you definitely do not want to keep an eye on. Like, this thing is going to be insanely good. And one thing I did notice as well is the top speed is going to be around 263 miles per hour. I did notice depending on the road you might be able to hit like 264, but regardless, this car is still going to be up there with the fastest touring cars in the game. And I really do feel like the overall meta in this class is most likely going to get shaken up. I will definitely be taking a look at the other touring cars because, my goodness, if they handle like this S1, we're going to be in for a treat. So after running the S1 GT4 Cup in that recent summit, I was honestly really impressed with this car in basically every way. Then again, guys, every single touring car is also going to be a lot better than they used to be, so I can't wait to test them out. But I'm also really impressed with seeing something like the Saleen being added into the touring category and being as good as it actually is, because I do know the ones in the street class, like the regular S1 and or the one that was in that motor pass, were honestly disappointments. I mean, sure, the cars do handle kind of nicely, so maybe on those shorter tracks you might be able to get away with it. I also feel like that lower top speed is still going to hurt them regardless because most cars do over 220, so seeing something like this one actually do 250 miles an hour makes it so much fun to use, and you really can feel the power of this thing accelerating as well, so I'm definitely pretty dang impressed with this car for the most part already, so I will be testing it out more. It's also going to be a 4-cylinder, I believe, as well, so you can definitely hear that crazy engine roaring, and I really do think it's actually going to be one of those touring cars a lot of players might actually look at. I really do feel like the meta in the touring class is most likely going to change pretty heavily with this update. Seeing that every single vehicle actually has the same handling update is going to make this very interesting. For example, guys, I'm most likely going to be trying out a lot of these cars in future summits. I actually think the Saleen S1 here is going to be a great competitor because for one, it has plenty of speed for that matter, plus the handling is honestly incredible. So I really do think a lot of these cars are going to be used a lot more often. You're most likely going to see a way bigger variety now on most of these events, which I would say a lot of people are probably waiting for that to happen anyway, so you don't keep seeing like the same 2 or 3 cars in every event. I would really like to see something like the Saleen or even like one of the Mercedes-Benz or like the Ferrari F40 or something like that being used a lot more often. Sure, some of the overall speed on these cars might honestly not be the greatest, like how they do accelerate, but I still think even then like something like the Saleen can still easily compete with like the old and or some of the new meta vehicles that might show up. I just feel like you might not be as fast as them with how these cars are, but to be honest, guys, I really do feel like the biggest goal with these summits is to get into Platinum. You don't necessarily have to be like the fastest person out there, but at the same time, I do feel like people are probably looking for a car they can use. Maybe they don't want to use a meta vehicle like the Renault, and I would say something like the Saleen here is going to be a great option, so I will definitely be testing this car out more in future summits to really see how this thing is actually going to perform against some of the better cars, but I do want to know what you guys think about the Saleen S1 GT4 Cup in the comments below, and here are the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle.